And this is in relation to, well, the big announcement yesterday from Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, that a sitting Tory MP, the first sitting Tory MP, would be defecting to Reform. He was Danny Kruger. Said basically in a speech at a press conference that the Conservative Party are over and the torch has been passed to Reform. It's been followed today by a former Tory MP, Maria Caulfield, a former Health Minister. She's defected. Follows others like Jake Berry, a former party chair, and Nadine Dorries, again, other non-sitting MPs, perhaps looking for a future career. But certainly Danny Kruger's defection has absolutely shocked the party. Today, Kemi Badenoch has acknowledged her party is having, she says, a tough and bumpy time. Well, let's talk right now about this with former Conservative Government Minister, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. A very good morning to you, Sir Jacob.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So, are you going to defect to Reform?
I've answered that many times, but perhaps I should ask you a question. Are you going to defect to GB News, where you'd been enormously popular and
Thank you very
right
much.
in?
It's not about me. Are you going to defect to Reform?
It's always about you. The programme's entirely devoted to you. It's your common sense.
We've got very short time.
So could you...
Would you mind answering the question?
Yeah, I've answered this question lots of times. Yeah, but will you answer mine?
No, I won't.
You answer
no,
mine,
I'm
I'll
not
answer
going
yours.
to.
That
No, I'm here
way.
at talk. Thank you very much. I'm very, very happy here. Thank you very much. I've been here since
forever,
day
and
one.
you'd never change.
Jacob.
You'd never change.
Jacob, this is silly. This is silly.
No, just like to know, you'd never change. You'd never jump ship for some huge amount of money.
When you say you've answered that question many times about Reform, implying that, well, of course the answer will be the same.
I'm staying in the Tory party.
You're staying in the Danny Kruger, I imagine.
I'm staying in the Tory party.
OK, Danny Kruger, I imagine...
But I'm staying in the Tory party. I just wanted to know what you might do.
OK. Danny Kruger, I'm sure if he was asked even the day before whether he would defect to Reform, he would probably have said no. We know he didn't tell some of his closest allies, Robert Jenrick, other people who worked on the campaign for Robert Jenrick, whose campaign manager he was for the Tory leadership. A lot of people didn't know. How many other Tories do you believe there are sitting MPs who may well be considering defecting?
I don't know. Indeed, when I heard Maria Caulfield had joined this morning, I thought she'd joined ages ago. So one sometimes forgets precisely who's done what. But what I'm interested in, what I think is so important, is that the right unites, that we have a really dreadful Labour government. It's getting everything wrong. It's mired in sleaze. It's suffering from resignations. Migration is out of control. The economy is going down the tubes. And the right needs to come together to defeat this, to have proper Conservative government. And what Danny said that I think is right is that though the Conservative Party may have its problems, conservatism, Conservative ideas are very strong. So I'd appeal to people to put labels aside, put pride aside, and work together for the much greater national interest, which is to get a proper Tory government in. OK,
so you're saying you don't need to defect to Reform, you just need to have Conservatives willing to ally with Reform at the next election to put in a Conservative government. Why would Reform UK, way ahead in the polls from your party, OK, you may have a lot more MPs, you know, 115 more, I think, MPs than Reform currently have, even with Danny Kruger's defection. Why would Reform say, yeah, we'll do a deal with the Tories when they are so far ahead in the polls right now and you are so far behind?
Because they're not ahead by enough. Now, they may be ahead to win an election, but if you look what's gone wrong, one of the things that's gone wrong for Labour is they've got a huge majority on a small share of the vote. So they have a majority but not a mandate. What we need for conservatism at the next general election is both. And that means getting 45 to 50% of the popular vote. Together we can achieve that. Divided, the best one of us will be likely to get about 30%. So that's why we need to work together. But there is also something, if you're a Conservative in any sense, and Danny clearly is, that you believe in maintaining traditions and institutions, preserving them while reforming them, rather than destroying and having a year zero. The year zero approach is a very left-wing approach, and therefore to maintain a party that dates back at least to Queen Anne, arguably to the Civil War, is, I think, a worthy thing to be doing.
OK, the big thing is, though, your party and your brand, you're damaged goods. Everything you just said a couple of answers ago about Keir Starmer's government, you know, mired in sleeve, immigration out of control, incompetence, like, most voters would say, well, yeah, and you were exactly the same. You talked a good game, but you didn't deliver on any of the things you said you would do. You had mass uncontrolled immigration, horrific amounts of sleaze, frankly, with a man, Boris Johnson, who you were supporting until his last breath in office. Absolutely failed on many institutions, highest taxes we'd seen in goodness knows how many decades. Why on earth for someone right now saying they want a right-wing government, want to get rid of Labour, say, yeah, let's go back to the people who messed it up in the first place, rather than a new party who've been saying the same thing for years and giving them a try?
Well, they haven't been saying the same thing for years because they haven't existed for years.
But whether they're called, whether Nigel Farage is called Reform or the Brexit Party,
No. It's really important because Reform, in its previous guises, had no policy other than leaving the European Union, which the Conservative Party delivered. So if that's what you're talking about, that was done by Boris Johnson. It was delivered by the Conservatives. So they didn't have any policies other than that of any merit at all. And Richard Tice has already said quite clearly that the manifesto they stood on in 2024 is now irrelevant. So they don't have any policies beyond
all
the Brexit one,
manifestos
which
are
done by the
irrelevant
Tories.
after an election, apart from the person who wins.
That's a fair point. But you can't say they've got all these policies that I'm talking about. Most of them are new. They haven't existed for years. So let's come to your point about the Tory record. Absolutely not everything works when you're in office for a long period, but we did leave the European Union, the major promise of 2019. The economy was the fastest growing in the G7 when we left office. Inflation was at 2%, and we had a plan to deal with illegal migration. And Rishi Sunak, to his credit, had taken really important steps to reduce legal migration.
Yes.
So yes, we
put up by your man Boris.
We had, but things were well. If you remember what was going on at the point at which migration took off, it was at a point at which we'd just ended COVID and people thought there wasn't going to be a return to work in Britain and that there was a desperate shortage of labour. That turned out to be wrong, but it wasn't malicious.
No,
governments inevitably make mistakes on imperfect information.
I haven't got time to talk about why that, by the way, didn't end COVID. You stopped having outrageously stupid lockdown policies, and the only reason we didn't have a lockdown in December 2021 was because Boris Johnson was going to be ousted. So let's not pretend that Boris Johnson did this for good reasons.
Julia, you know we agreed on COVID. We talked about it regularly.
Yeah, I don't remember you ever speaking out on it, Jacob.
I went as far as I could. Oh, well, I was bound by collective responsibility, and I went as far as I could within those confines.
Yeah, anyway.
But that was unfortunately done for the best reasons that we were told by the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Officer, now Labour Minister, that we would kill people if we didn't do it.
You say
it's quite an important discussion, and you raised it.
Yes, we said we killed people by doing it. Instead, if every single sitting Tory MP decided, other than maybe Kemi Badenoch, still leader, decided to defect to Reform, and the Tory party was effectively, one-woman band left, just say in that scenario, are you still saying you would never defect to Reform?
The boy stood on the burning deck when all but he had fled. Casabianca is a great poem, but I'm not sure it makes a political reality.
I'm asking a hypothetical. You're saying you would never defect. Is there no scenario? You were the last person in the party.
I'm saying, well, I'll put you back to my earlier question. Would you go to GB News if Talk Radio decided that it wasn't going to carry on? It's a silly hypothetical.
OK, we've got about 10 seconds left, so I'm going to have to leave it there. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, we made a good effort to get some information out of you. Former Conservative Government Minister, he's not going to defect, but is there anyone else?